Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and I'm so glad you're with us to stay curious. Of course, we've advertised this as a very, very special show where we're going to honor Karan Conklin, our executive director, who passed away Sunday, losing her battle with cancer. And I wrote a script that I'm going to pretty much keep to so I can keep myself together. Uh, but it's been very hard on our museum staff. Just happening Sunday, and this being Wednesday, February or August 14th, 2024. Things are just kind of sinking in, and um, uh, but we've got a lot of great leadership here. I want to tell you that's going to keep the museum doing the things that Karen loved to do and had us doing here. Let me get my phone up here. So uh, I don't really want to take too many comments today. So why are you messing with that, Mark, right? If you see something there, Logan, that pops out, go ahead. But uh, this is a very special edition of Stay Curious that I never imagined we would be sharing. Uh, it has some kismet to it, as this is episode 1111. And I've got August 15th there. I got the wrong date. This is the 14th. Um, and that's four aces. Those of you that play cards, and four aces is a high hand. Straight flush will beat it, but um, and a flush, of course. But that it's so ironic, and I'm going to mention that here, that born out of the COVID pandemic, Stay Curious was named by Karen Conklin in one of her famous shower moments. That we would say, "Hey, I was taking a shower and I thought about this," and we were constantly doing that as well as throwing spaghetti on the wall with a lot of great ideas that she had when she took over as executive director right around 2018. Appropriately four aces because it's the winning hand that Karen Conklin represented in the eyes of everyone who met her. And I'm going to share her husband's obituary here. Let me stick to what I got going here. On behalf of Karen's family and her family at the American Space Museum, uh, we thank you for all of your sincere condolences. Um, Over 200 comments on Facebook alone, dozens of personal emails to the museum and myself. And we can't thank you all enough for your thoughts and prayers. And though there's so many things I would love to share about all the beautiful things you said about Karen, I chose one person that knew her quite well, and she summed it up beautifully. That's Marcia Gadecki, who for over 20 years was the Titusville Chamber of Commerce president. And Marcia, your words are just exemplify what everybody says about this compassionate woman, Karen Conklin. Um, in a minute, I'll share Karen's obituary that her husband Mark Conklin posted on the website of North Brevard Funeral Home here in Titusville. Here is the information there. Uh, I'm going to intersperse a few pictures to break, have a few breaks there so I don't get overwhelmed here. Um, I knew Karen like a sister, and her husband Mark like a brother. They were a beautiful couple, over 25 years together. And Mark, our heart breaks for you. And I'm going to read the beautiful words that he put together about his wife. But the service will be Saturday, August 31st at 2 p.m. If you're here local, it's at the North Brevard Funeral Home, and there's the information. Um, it will be broadcast on live video. They have that capability, and I asked Mark, and yes, so I know that there'll be 20 or 30 of you around the world in our beautiful country wanting to watch Karen's service. And those are the people attending. We're going to have a celebration of her life at the museum. Afterwards, her husband, Mark, is handling some catering affairs of special people that they knew in their lives. And we are closing the museum that day in honor of Karen. Uh, I'm going to end this episode of Stay Curious with a few of my personal stories about this woman who completely changed my life with her passion for the American Space Museum and the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation. I think it's time I look at one of the pictures real quick here. Uh, this is an event we had in November, and thank you to Alexandria and Dwight uh, for putting this together. Bonneke, and there I've got Carlton Bailey's here. Hi, Carlton. You can help me out when I get tongue-tied there. But also running the board today is Logan Cope, our intern at Eastern Florida State College. Marty's last day of vacation. So Marty and I will do a show tomorrow together about some of his vacation trips. But we put together a great event in November thanks to Dwight and Alexandria and their documentary about Skylab. And that, of course, is Jack Lausman on the left and Rusty Schweikert on the right. And Carlton, what a great event it was. Those guys were awesome, particularly Rusty, known to be a little bit roughly at times, I think, but he was so awesome. And Karen just had a great time. And that's right before she cut her bangs. She made a big deal about cutting her bangs in there. You'll see a picture or two of that, I think, in here, maybe. Maybe not. We've got a lot of pictures of her on the internet there on our Facebook page. So Karen's diagnosis of lung cancer was not made until the end of May this year. Horrible cancer was quick and merciless. We are comforted only by the attentive care that Karen received by her husband of 25 years, Mark Conklin, and the fact that Karen's 3 Yorkie fur babies were cuddled with her when she passed away the morning of August 11th, 2024. Karen was 65 years old on July 29th. She was quick to say that was the date that the unmanned Atlas Mercury 1 blew up, MA1 to all you space geeks out there, as the hatch is a prized artifact in our Mercury Gemini gallery of that pioneering flight. And, we've lost a lot of ASM space workers the past couple of years. Each one of them hurts in their own way, and each one of them I'm honored to have known. I will keep saying a few more times, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't have the beautiful life I have on the Space Coast, was it not for Karan Conklin's trust and something she saw in me. But the people we've lost the last couple of years include some of the earliest rocket pioneers like Ike Ridgel and Rocketdyne rocket expert Lee Solid. A year ago, we lost rocket hobo Ozzy Osband, who brought the 321 area code to the coast. And recently, old-timers Jack Martin, Murphy Wardman, and Bob Giffen passed away. And Lorraine Merchant worked in our office as a volunteer in our membership. And you dealt with Lorraine when you bought a name at the monuments out there. She passed away. So this really hurts. A lot of these people, though, live beautiful lives into their 80s. In the late 80s, and Murphy Wardman's wake is going to be this Friday at the North Brevard Funeral Home, and Bob's is going to be Saturday, and we posted those on Facebook. I'll repost them tomorrow. They all knew Karen for decades before I did, and I'd like to think they're all lined up to get a big old hug from her. At the American Space Museum, we consider America's space workers to be national treasures for the unique skills and spacecraft they built and how they changed our world. You just think about it. I grew up in the cornfields of Ohio and spent 35 years between the Appalachian Mountains there, between the Smokies and the Blue Ridge. And everywhere you live on Earth, you're touched by something that our space program has done to improve our lives. And I'm not going to get into all those spin-offs. You're watching one right now or holding one in your hand. Karan Conklin is another kind of national treasure, as she exemplified the American spirit of hard work, compassion for the underdog, champion of the voiceless, and Karen walked what she talked. Supporting Karen for more than 25 years is her husband, Mark Conklin, a valued volunteer in the museum's early years and a true friend of mine. After all, if you hung around one Conklin, you were going to get the other one. They were a wonderful couple. Let's look at here, but I'm gonna before I get into Mark's eulogy, let's see what other picture I got racked up there. That's Ernie Rios with the eye patch and his brother Raul. They both passed away. This was when we did an Apollo 50th anniversary event in 2019. And Ernie was an amazing Mr. Fix-It guy for NASA. He is on our YouTube channel and our Facebook videos. And Ernie was actually, his office was outside the Apollo 1 spacecraft on Pad 34 on that fateful night in 1967. And he freely shared his experience. And Karen, goes back with all these people. At this point in time, she may have worked with Ernie on some projects for weeks, and here they hadn't seen each other in maybe a couple years when we put this together. So, and one other beautiful picture with Joanne Morgan. And Joanne Morgan is, of course, the first woman to do many things in NASA. She was in the firing room for Apollo 11. And Joanne, a Titusville native, like Karen, lived most of her life here. Karen, she was a very generous contributor to the American Space Museum financially, and a special person that, when I look at Joanne and Karen there, I can go into Karen's office every morning and we debrief each other. And I remembered something like saying, hey, why don't we try to, Joanne Morgan hasn't been on Stay Curious. Let's see if we can get her on. Why don't we see if we can get her on? And Karen was a woman of action. She would flip out her phone, dial that person's number. She dialed Joanne's number, put it on speaker. She loved being on speaker and kind of got me hooked on being that way. And it's smart too in business, so you got other people listening to business conversations. Hey Joanne, I'm sitting here with Mark, and you met him, blah blah blah, and why don't you come on? And yeah, we had a great Zoom with her at one time there. So anyway, there's Joanne Morgan and Karen. Here is the obituary that is on the funeral page. Karen Edith Conklin, a beacon of creativity and passion, lived a life that inspired all who knew her. Born on July 29, 1959 in Miami, Florida, Karen's journey was one of love, dedication, and service, culminating in her peaceful passing on August 11, 2024 in Titusville, Florida. She was a cherished wife, mother, sister, and grandmother whose vibrant spirit and loving nature left an indelible mark on her family and community. Karen's love story with her husband, Mark D. Conklin, spanned over 3 decades of mutual support and shared dreams. Together they raised a family that included their beloved daughter, Melissa Johnson, and were blessed with the joy of their granddaughter, Alexa. Karen was a guiding light to her brothers, Sid, Robert, and William Petty, offering wisdom and laughter in equal measure. Though predeceased by her daughter, Megan, Karen's legacy of love continues to flourish through her family's lives. Professionally, Karen dedicated 21 years to the American Space Museum and the Space Walk of Fame Foundation, where she's shown as its executive director. Her visionary leadership and unwavering commitment to preserving the history of space workers earned her the respect and admiration of her peers. Karen's involvement in the City of Titusville Flag and Memorial Committee and the Tourist Development Council reflected her deep commitment to honoring the past while nurturing the future of her hometown, Titusville, Florida. A Rotarian for many years, Karen exemplified the true essence of service above self. Her servant's heart was evident in every project she undertook, every cause she championed, and every life she touched. Karen's altruistic spirit was a guiding force, motivating others to give back and make a difference in their communities. Beyond her professional and civic engagements, Karen's interest painted a picture of a woman deeply in tune with the beauty of life. Her love for flowers and gardening was a testament to her ability to cultivate growth and joy in both nature and people. Let me put that one up there. Yeah, just make it small there. Karen's artistic talents knew no bounds as she immersed herself in pottery, weaving, photography, and jewelry making, winning awards and acclaim for her unique creations. Karen's zest for life was also evident in her role as an officiant of non-traditional wedding ceremonies. She brought a touch of magic to every couple's special day, crafting moments that celebrated love in all of its forms. Karen's fondness for her fur babies, uh, Yorkie Terriers, showcased her compassionate and nurturing side, providing a loving home for those without a voice. And I want to show that picture of her. There she is there. As an avid reader and artist, Karen thrived in her creative flow, always seeking new ways to express her inner thoughts and feelings. Her artwork was not just visually stunning, but also a reflection of her inner world, a world filled with color, compassion, and love. The words that best describe Karan Conklin are creative, passionate, and loving. Her life was a canvas upon which she painted a vibrant tapestry of experiences, relationships, and contributions. Karen's story is not one of an ending, but a celebration of life lived with purpose, a heart given freely, and a legacy that will continue to inspire. Let us honor Karen's memory by living as she did, with passion, love, and commitment to making the world a better place. Her journey on this earth may have concluded, but the echoes of her laughter, the warmth of her embrace, the brilliance of her spirit will forever resonate in the hearts of those she touched. Karen Edith Conklin, your story is one of triumph, of beauty, and of eternal love. Your light will never fade. And to follow that up, I mentioned Marcia Gadecki, well known in Titusville and the Space Coast as over 2 decades the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Titusville. Marcia is now involved with the Titusville Theater. Still a very young, influential woman in our community and one that I've had the privilege to know. And I know Marcia Gadecki was on this journey at the Space Museum and even before with Karen. So when I read what Marcia put on the funeral, I said, you just can't say it any better. Here's what Marcia Gadecki said. This is one of the most beautiful obituaries I have ever read. I am so grateful for the contributions Karen made to my life and to our community. Her calm and very insightful presence helped others to center themselves and focus on what was really important in a number of situations. And I always appreciate her perspective and contribution. I celebrate her love for life and every living thing she encountered. Love to her family and friends. I give love to her family and friends that have been left behind for her next adventure, and immense gratitude for the light she brought to this world. Thank you, Marcia. Marcia sat around hours of meetings with Karen, and that was something that I zeroed in on immediately about Karen as a business professional, was that she had a calm demeanor that kind of she brought into the room. It wasn't one of these extroverts that commanded a room, but in my mind, an introvert who who people's attention was given to because she was so soft-spoken and yet meaningful in what she said. And like Marcia hit the nail on the head, she calmed down many a meeting, I'll bet, by just saying, "What are we doing here? Let's look at the big picture and look at how we're talking about human beings and so forth, not buckets of money and so forth." So, well, I want to share my personal story a little bit about Karen. Um, Picture of us here. I'm wearing my, I'll tell you about that picture there in a second. Wearing my traditional vest that started Stay Curious, the vest I like wearing uh, when I interview VIPs and such on there. And this was our 1000th show, okay, 111 episodes ago on there. And you can see how happy and proud she was for us to put this together. And how did it come about? Well, I'll tell you here in a minute. There she is showing Jack Lausma the picture of this, of our Cape Canaveral gallery, and she's showing a picture of pad 36 during a launch on there. And there's Joseph Adams in the back, who's been with our museum all 20 years too, like Karen there. So love that little picture she's picking up, and always, showing off our museum there. So, all right. Well, I have never met another earthling who captivated my heart as a friend and completely changed my life. I moved to Florida's Space Coast in May 2017 after visiting the American Space Museum just earlier in the year, like in February. Okay. I lived in Upper East Tennessee for 35 years, say Bristol, Johnson City, Kingsport. I was very involved in amateur astronomy clubs. I gave talks all the time, and I wrote a weekly column on space and astronomy called The Stargazer for 22 years in a weekly magazine called The Loafer. Well, due to some life circumstances, I took early retirement and went to visit and write about 35 or so space museums that Wikipedia said were out there in America. And I wanted to do a blog, and those were getting popular. And just like all of us that reach the golden age of retirement, I had enough of what I was doing, and I wanted to do something different that included all my skills. Well, the American Space Museum was the 17th museum I visited. And I've been out to Texas and Oklahoma and saw the Cosmosphere and the Stafford Museum. And this place really impressed me. In fact, I drove by on an Easter evening and saw the shuttle and the rocket garden, so to speak, out on A1A. Did a U-turn and looking through windows and I couldn't see anything inside. And I was here at 10 o'clock when the doors opened, and I couldn't believe it. It was like the most beautiful man cave or space cave I've ever been in. And I was touched. I knew something was special about this place. Well, let me interject that today, after 7 years of hanging around space worker national treasures, all right, I wrote a column every week for 22 years. I figured out one day was over 2 million words, but it was tedious. And this is before the email even. I had to write it on a typewriter in the early days. After 7 years of hanging around here with space workers and national treasures, I say that if I have a gallon of knowledge today, I was lucky to have a pint back 7 years ago in comparison. Nothing is a substitute for the archival history of space workers, astronauts, and space influencers that we share on Stay Curious for the past 4 years, all because of Karan Conklin and faith in me and her support in so many ways. Well, I wrote my column that night here at the hotel, and then I called up the first thing in the morning, and the executive director, Tara Engel, was out of town, but Karan Conklin could talk to me on Wednesday morning. So Karan and I met in the conference room here at the museum. We talked about 20 minutes on the column, and then we began talking. We talked about the space community here. The story was about the museum, but I saw another story developing about the space community here. A company called SpaceX, she said, was going to launch a lot of rockets soon and put NASA astronauts back in space. And Yeah, I'd heard a little bit about SpaceX and Elon Musk and stuff. Anticipation was in the air for the comeback of the Space Coast after a declining decade, because of everything here declined for a decade because of the end of the space shuttle era in 2011. I remember talking to Karen about astronomy being something I could teach, as Karen was all about educating kids with science, technology, engineering, and arts and math, the STEAM programs that we've had here that she's engineered at the American Space Museum. I told her stargazing is the bright, shiny object that attracts people to your event. And years later, I got to show her Saturn for the first time, and her words, "I'm about wetting my pants. I can't believe it's got rings around it." And I said, "Well, it does. Glad you're looking." Karen and I, for this discussion, looked at our watches, and over 2 hours had passed by. When I sat in my car in the parking lot to leave, I had a spiritual experience that the American Space Museum was going to be in my life. I called Karen from Tennessee every week, telling her I couldn't stop thinking about the museum. She's laughing on the phone, and I'm like, what would you put in what I was drinking? It was like drinking the Kool-Aid at a cult. Uh, and when I look back on it, Carlton and you all out there, I was having a romance with an institution, one that offered everything I loved since a little boy: astronauts, rockets, telescopes. All right. What more is there to a little boy? And then I become a young man and I met women. And that's another story. But I met Karen too, and she was one of the best women. I swear to God, just like a sister, her and Mark like brother to me. Just, just an amazing, amazing friend. I told Karen I was seriously thinking about moving to the Space Coast and volunteering at the museum. And she would always say, "You're coming at a good time." And I moved. Pretty bold decision to make in your 60s, leaving 30 years of friends and family, but everything was okay back home. And though it was a little rough for me in the beginning, life has smoothed out, and I have no regrets, and I'd do it again because I know Carlton Bailey. And I saw Carlton Bailey's photograph here at our of the first man to take a rocket across in front of the moon, and I knew that was a very famous picture, and I thought, man, maybe one day I'll get to meet this guy, and here you are. I became a docent and was soon doing volunteering astronomy outreach, and ended up photographing the museum collection for our archives. And Nick Enoch's come along as new collection manager, and about the same time as I did. Karen became executive director in 2018, and I became the president of a local astronomy club. Karen allowed the club to meet at the museum in exchange for stargazing outreach, and voila, I had my first liaison relationship for the museum that we still have with the Brevard Astronomical Society. They'll meet here Wednesday night. I got to know Karen and her husband Mark, who she just simply adored. I learned the two of them had been volunteers first for almost 20 years, and then she helped run the day-to-day business at 6 locations during the past 2 decades. 2 malls, a very small office business place, and they bought this building 9 years ago. As well as she was involved with the Spaceview Park monuments of Apollo and the shuttle when they were built. And husband Mark, God bless you, was always handy with a truck and a trailer to help move and pick up anything necessary. Eventually, Karen found some grant money for me to become the community liaison, and I quickly became Karen's extension to places she didn't have time to go, cutting my teeth in Brevard County politics with nonprofit organizations at the Chamber of Commerce's and such. And we were particularly proud of our award of 2021 Nonprofit of the Year at the Cocoa Beach Chamber of Commerce. Karen and I met every morning in her office, and I threw spaghetti on the walls, a metaphor I use for brainstorming sessions that put some programs together. I remember, some of the spaghetti didn't stick, some of it that did stick had a little sauce on it. Maybe sometimes there was sauce and a little bit of meat on it. All right. But I'm an idea guy, and I kept throwing out things. And of course, a lot of it was we don't have the people to do that. As I realized that really the American Space Museum, as dear as it is in all your hearts, is a very small, humble museum. And, you know, I really had some wonder. She let me loose on a lot of ideas. We were always thinking about ways to take the museum beyond the artifacts and into the mindset that we live in the birthplace of America's space age. Like I said a couple times, that spaghetti on the wall not only stuck with lots of sauce and meat, but stuck with ideas that are still flourishing. One of them being the Stay Curious video podcast and the annual Shuttle Fest conference in April. I remember going into her about on Mondays and saying, I've got some new ideas. And she'd go, what do you got now? And kick back and listen to me and hear me out. And just the right person to balance me out, I guarantee it. In 2019, Karan was really involved with the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 moon landing. We had so many people involved with that were involved with the Apollo astronauts, including our godfather, Charlie Mars, who I know his heart aches, and his wife, Barbara, because Karan was his right-hand person for more than 10 years. But her expert planning and execution in 2019 was one of her specialties, and she engineered an event at the astronaut memorial facility at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. She organized an event for 700 space workers to enjoy an amazing day of talks and tributes and a box lunch, and everyone got their lunch. I guarantee it. Nobody out of 700 people did not get what they wanted. Karan was so efficient at stuff like this. We had our own event here on a different date where we had standing room only crowd. So Karan and I were thinking of ideas to reach out and get the community involved under her 10 years executive director. And we were developing in late 2019 a monthly event called Celebration Series, Space Celebration Series. That was some spaghetti that was sticking on the wall that seemed to have some meat and sauce on it. January 2020 would be Animals in Space, which we did very well, thanks to Roger McCormick's expertise. Then in Ham the chimpanzee astronaut flew, I think January 30th, so that was appropriate. Of course, Black History Month in February, we brought in some leaders here that worked at the Space Center from the African American community. That was a beautiful show. And then we had March was Women in Space, scheduled for March 17th, 2020. So that didn't happen because of the COVID pandemic. But we had 12 months of themes and programs and guests starting to book. Had guests booked through July when we were going to do another Celebrating Apollo, always in July. So we were really disappointed that we couldn't do anything in the COVID pandemic, and the country closed St. Patty's Day, basically, 2020. Well, I said, Karan, your financial supporters need to know that we're going to, the board of directors isn't sending us home. We got paintbrushes and cleaned up and fixed up stuff and did other things. And I thought, we're developing a Facebook page, and they have a Facebook Live, and I've got my phone here, and let me try to do a few artifacts on Facebook and see what that looks like, one artifact a day, and let people reach out. And then, of course, Karan had the idea that Stay Curious would become into all the schools, because the schools weren't going to class, so we would be a science outlet for them and something entertaining. And that's really where we thought Stay Curious was going to go. I did a couple tests on my cell phone and was confident that we could do a daily program and that I could do it. And then one morning, Karan came to work and said, I have a shower thought about this video podcast. We're going to call it Stay Curious. And so, bingo, that was born. And we had some good artwork done by Darren Roberts, our STEAM educator here at the time. And that's where Stay Curious and this logo and everything came from. So after 4.5 years later, Here we are at our 1111th episode, celebrating the life of this amazing woman, Karan Conklin. And I have cried crocodile tears the last 3 days, and thank you, God, for letting me get through this, because I just can't underestimate how Karan Conklin has changed my life. She truly did. I am so blessed doing what I love. The people I know, like you UCF brothers out there, Chris Calley, a world-renowned artist, first-class rocket photographers, the UCF brothers, Calley, the artist. Frequently am talking to legends of NASA, and listening and listening and listening to their incredible stories that need to be told. And don't worry, I'm taking plenty of notes, and being a writer, uh, I hope to write something about all this experience. But what I love you for, Karan Conklin, is how you trusted me, empowered me, and introduced me to space legends beyond my wildest dreams. I owe it to her to continue doing things the best that she entrusted me to do. And I clearly want to leave a trail for any successors of mine at this museum, as I too understand my own mortality. God bless you, Karan Conklin, for the lives you've touched, mine being just one of the multitudes of earthlings who will never forget your smile and loving demeanor. And she sent this to me, this Christmas card, in 2018. Gave me this Christmas card. And if you know Karan, she had beautiful handwriting. Look at that gorgeous handwriting, this beautiful woman. And you know what? If any of you NASCAR fans are out there, her last name was Petty. And the king of NASCAR, Richard Petty's handwriting is very much like this. I showed that to her several times. But after a year of us being together and working together, she said, thank you for everything. We make a great team, and I love your enthusiasm, your big ideas, and the moxie to carry them out. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year, Karan. And thank you, Karan. Like I said, we don't ever want to forget your smile, your calming demeanor, and your love for everyone who surrounded you. And to end this program, I just want to say we love you too, Mark, and her whole family. And the celebration will be August. Let me put that back up there. I didn't get to probably all the pictures, but that's okay. There she is with Julie Payette. Sandy Storm, artist of our Space View Park sculptures. Her babies there. There's Mike McCulley and her, just such a great team. Mike, you've done so much for our museum. For 10 years ago, he was doing awesome things for us there. So thank you, the family. And August 31st, you can watch the service, and we will of course be talking about that. And the life of Karan Conklin will be talked about a lot on Stay Curious, as we want to keep her in our hearts, and just let you all know that her mission will continue through all of us here at the American Space Museum. Karan Conklin, rest in peace, ad astra, and stay curious in paradise. I love you and your family, and we will see you in paradise. Thank you all for watching.